Hello, I'm Paul Laney, the retired sheriff from Cass County, North Dakota, and the current vice president of national sales for Turnkey Corrections.
And I'm Lauren Matthews, and I'm the current social media and content specialist for Turnkey.
And you are listening to Jail Talk, and we have an exciting episode, actually 2 episodes planned for you with this gentleman sitting beside me. We have with us today Sergeant Jacob Schak of the Dakota County, Minnesota Sheriff's Office. Easy for me to say, right? Holiday weekend, it just kind of catches up. Yes, we're working. Working out here. Sergeant Schak runs a program at the Dakota County, Minnesota Sheriff's Office that we're going to share with you over the next couple episodes. And one of the things Lauren and I have always promised with this show is that we're not going to waste your time. We're not going to just sit here and talk and ramble on and just to hear our glorious voices, because they're not that glorious. And 2, you don't have the time to listen to that. We've promised you substance, and we're going to bring you substance. And Sergeant Schak manages a program at Dakota County that's been around for a while, and he's going to tell you all about that. And in the first episode, we're going to talk about what's been successful, what the program is, how it's worked, and then in part 2, we're going to tell you how to implement that program and share it with you. As we always say in the world, and I say a lot in my leadership presentations, Lauren, if you copy somebody else's work in school, that's plagiarism, right? Mm-hmm. But in the real world, it's called best practices. Sure. And today we're going to teach you and show you a best practice. So Sergeant Schak, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
It's a privilege for us, a pleasure for us. We've been really excited about this as we've sat down and started planning out the coming shows. And I know I say it a lot, and I probably sound like a broken record a lot when I say it on the air, but it really means a lot to us that we're not wasting their time. Yes. And you know what it's like, and your day is busy. I know you've listened to the show in the past, and when you tune into us, we want you to walk away from it and say, wow, that was worth my time. Mm-hmm. And so we search hard, and when we bring in guests, we want it to be somebody that somebody wants to listen to. I think we scored. We scored on this one.
I guess.
Yeah, so no, I think I know from what I've seen of this program and the successes you've had with this, I know it's going to benefit all of our listeners, and we're excited to get started. But you have something to do first.
Yeah, before we dive into all about the program, we would love if you would share with our listeners just a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, thank you guys for having me. What you're doing here is huge, and it benefits everyone. And that's what I just love about this company. It's what I love about Jail Talk. So thank you guys for letting me come here today and just hang out with you guys for a little bit. But my history, so I've been at the sheriff's office since 2012, and I've done basically every job you could possibly do inside the jail. Started out as a correctional deputy, worked really hard, did what I could to make my name known in the law enforcement world, and started doing jail special response team, became a field training officer, and then I got to be an IMC deputy, Inmates Motivated change deputy, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And then I also got to be a shift sergeant, got to now, I was going to promise to tell this story. We were talking. So really quick, the reason I work in a jail, when I was going to Inver Hills Community College, I had Lieutenant Hart, who was the jail program sergeant at the time for Dakota County Sheriff's Office, came and spoke to my class. Working in jail wasn't even on my radar at that time. But he, with his speech about what it is and changing inmates' lives and the hard work that's involved with it, a light bulb came on for me. So then I applied, and the rest is history, I guess. But in 2012, I got hired, and now I'm doing Lieutenant Hart's job as a program sergeant. The title's changed a little bit, but I'm essentially doing the job now. So amazing.
Way to go, Lieutenant Hart. Well done. Just some living proof that when we go out and do those things, that they work and they matter to going in and talking to these young minds. Because here you are now, and you run an entire program, an entire unit within your jail.
Yep. And so then just education-wise for me, graduated from Inver Hills Community College with an associate arts degree, graduated from Capella University with a criminal justice degree, and then just most recently graduated with my master's degree in human services with an emphasis in behavioral forensic health. So it's a mouthful. It took me a year just to be able to say that in the program, but
that's when you get to graduate?
Yeah, that's when you get to graduate, when you can officially say it. And so prior to that, served in the Minnesota Army National Guard for 6 years, worked in a couple of group homes, a couple treatment facilities with juveniles, Married to a wonderful wife, Angela, shout out. She supports me in everything I do, and that's one of the reasons I am so successful. So, yeah, that's me, guys.
Wow.
Just happy to be here.
We are excited to have you here, and now you get to be on JailTalk. So, I mean, I don't know if there's anywhere else to go from here, but, okay, we both know there is. So we can't tell you how excited we are to have you here, because you have this program, and you referenced it in your bio about Inmates Motivated to Change, and you implemented this a number of years back. And can you tell us about the program and what it's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the IMC Unit, which is the acronym I'm going to use today, just because it's hard to say Inmates Motivated to Change 100 times. The IMC Unit, it's a little tricky. When we start going back, we tried to identify when it actually started. I found two different dates, 1999 and 2001. And I can't officially say which one was the official start. On our crest, it says 1999 that we have for the IMC Unit in our jail. But I usually use 2001 because there's a document I found that said 2001 on it. So we go with 2001. But the whole purpose of the IMC Unit is to create an environment of change for our inmates that are in custody. We want to be a community inside the jail that is working together to not only better our inmates, but betters the society they return to. And that's what corrections is all about. And when you think of an inmate incarcerated and the opportunities that they get, depending on who you ask, some might say they don't deserve anything. Some might say give them everything. Just depends who you talk to in a given day. But our goal at Dakota County Sheriff's Office is to make sure that any inmate that comes into custody with us has the opportunity to go into this unit and be better. And so from 2001 until today, 20 years later, we've been trying to live out that mission and to create an environment of change.
You know, you look across the country, it almost, you and your office, and back in 2001, Sergeant Schak was probably, still in high school?
Yeah.
And you look back to see that this isn't just some flash in the pan program here. This is something that's tried, true, and tested, and I listened to that along. I did 3 terms as a sheriff, and I came in, and I wanted to be a very progressive sheriff when I came in. And I used to have, if I've said it once, I said it 1,000 times while I was sheriff, was I refused to be a warehouse for people.
Yes.
And there were certainly those people out there that lock them up and throw them away. They paid their, who cares? They're just inmates. They, they've made their mistakes and they can pay their debt to society. And there's those philosophies, throw away is the keys. Right. And what did we have when we had that philosophy? A revolving damn door of inmates coming in who came back in, perfected their criminal behavior, went right back out into society, hadn't had the opportunity to change, didn't have that structure, that infrastructure for change, didn't have that support for change, and guess what? Came right back in, not that long thereafter. So I remember that. I was part of that, back then when I came in 2007, that was alive and well, but we were kind of on a cusp of, I like to think there was a lot of us out there looking at, if you look at that definition of insanity, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, what are you going to get? Right. The same thing over and over. All right. Well, let's try to disrupt that. Now, let me clarify that with saying I have no problem with people being in jail. You've made your mistakes. You need to pay your debt to society. Right. You've done whatever it is you've done. And I've got no qualms with you being here. Society has determined you can't be part of us anymore. Right. You need to pay your debt. But going back to my saying, I had that philosophy that while you're here, while you're paying your debt to society, I refuse to be a warehouse for you. Yes. I'm going to give you every opportunity to change and every opportunity to better yourself to not come back. And that's what I always felt was my oath to my community was to protect you. And how do I protect you and serve you? Yeah, sometimes it's, going into a very violent situation and solving that. Sometimes it's thinking past your own nose and figuring out how do we stop this from happening. Yeah. You guys have done that. Yeah. You guys, I wish this would have been around. I wish I'd have known about this because it was around, but I hadn't been exposed to it. And that's why I was so excited when I heard about it. We've been clients with you and had a partnership here for 20 years. And when I came here, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah.
This is good. Yeah. This needs to be to get out there. And so I just think it's phenomenal that you guys were that progressive, that, and that you guys embraced this at a time where it was kind of that throwaway the key. And what I found, and you tell me if you disagree with this, Sarge, most inmates at the county jail level are not bad people. They're really bad decision makers.
Something I love to say is every one of us is one decision away from being there ourselves.
Absolutely.
Given a set of circumstances in our own lives, we could be the participant in the IMC program. And I know we've all probably had family members, friends that have been in the system at times. And that's one of my philosophies is, why can't we just treat them like they are our family member, friend, neighbor? I have the huge belief that love outweighs anything we do. And so when we can do that in a way that is progressive and actually helps these people in our jail system, let's do it. Who's it going to hurt? It's not going to hurt us. Right. We're just going to help them. And so, the progressiveness of it, when you have a support like Dakota County, that's like, yes, we want to showcase the IMC unit. We want to pour in resources to it. We know it works. We know that when inmates participate in the program, they're better off than when they started. And so, real quick, a quick story. I just ran into a guy. Probably shouldn't use his real name, so I'll call him Pete. Ran into Pete at one of our long-term contractors that runs a moral cognizance therapy group for the IMC unit passed away this year. He was my first contractor to come back. Ron Reed, if any of his family's listening, amazing human. But he was one of the first contractors to come back during COVID. He's like, I want to be in there. I want to be back in the IMC unit. I want to be back teaching these guys. So he came back. Unfortunately, he passed away just recently, but we had the opportunity to go say goodbye to him at the hospice. And Pete, one of our former inmates, was there. And he had been going there every day. And he came and talked to me and Deputy Hannah, one of my IMC deputies, special duty correctional deputy. And he came over and talked to us and he said, thank you. Your investment to me during that time in the IMC unit has brought me to where I am now. He's a manager at a restaurant in St. Paul, doing well, getting to reconnect with his family. And that kind of story just fuels me and fuels my IMC staff and, our support staff too at the county. When we can share that kind of story, like it works, people, you just got to invest into it. There's nothing better feeling than that.
And isn't that serving and protecting?
Absolutely.
You stop and think about, so many think of the old, street cop, 1 Adam, 12 days, serving and protecting, gets out, catch the bad guys. Okay, we do that very well. Mm-hmm. We catch a lot of people making bad decisions and committing crimes, and they end up in jail. But now let's be better. Yeah. And let's go further. It's kind of like that tough love. You said when you talk about love being one of the things that we can do to our fellow man to help make it better. Is it really any different than when you were a kid? Did you get put in jail as a kid? I did. It's called getting grounded and get sent to your room because there was some tough love for a decision I made. Mm-hmm. This is just a much more in-depth extension of that. Of course, you probably did. You were that perfect child.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, let's clarify that. I got grounded. Lauren did not. But, all of our joking around aside, when you start looking at that investment, it pays off. So tell us about the program, because you guys, it was really cool, Lauren. You just see how he lights up when he talks about it. You can tell this isn't just a job for you. This is a passion for you. And that's why I couldn't wait to get you on camera. Yeah.
So, this unit is just so unique. I'll just start from the beginning of just kind of how it works inside our jail. So we have one of our housing units is dedicated to the IMC unit. So the only people that can go there are participants in the unit, IMC unit. They actually have to pre-apply to get into the unit. So on our kiosk, turnkey kiosk, they actually apply to a couple questions that we have on there saying, why is this the time for you to change? Why do you want to change? And what are you going to do? How are you going to put in the work? So then Deputy Hannah gets that list of all of our inmates that want to get interviewed. And so then with that list of interviews, then I give it to the IMC deputies. And so then In any given day, our IMC deputies will interview 2 to 3 guys that want to participate. We'll do a community-based interview. We'll have the entire housing unit circled up.
Oh, wow.
With the IMC deputy leading everything, and we have a list of 10 questions. Why is this the time for you to change? Is the number one right on top. How is this time going to be different? What are you going to do? And how can we help you get there? And then based on that interview, there's a few more questions in that. Our IMC deputy will look over their history with us, and if they feel it's a good fit for them, then we'll bring them in. Once they get into the housing unit, they actually get assigned one of my IMC deputies. And another cool caveat, our IMC deputies are what's called a special duty correctional deputy. And so they're actually getting paid a little more to do this role also, which is a huge investment from the county level to say, it's so important, we're gonna give a little money to add to this. It's huge. And so then the IMC deputy that gets assigned to the inmate will now start case management with them, one-on-one time, where they go through a risk assessment needs assessment to figure out, okay, I'm just going to use Pete again, inmate Pete. Are your risk areas alcohol, drugs, the friends you hang out with? Is it school? Is it education? Is it your work history? And once we can identify those risks, then that's when our case manager will say, okay, that's where your risk areas are. Now we're going to put you in the programming that's going to address those risks. So the easiest one to kind of give an example with is if you've been in and out of our facility for DWIs and maybe something a little more extreme happens, so now you're going to be spending a little more time with us. So drinking's been the number one issue. AA program. We're going to put you in there. We also have an in-house jail treatment program. It's the social services job to work with our inmates on changing that way of thinking about addiction. And once they get into that program, so we'll just say they're in the AA program and they're in the jail treatment program. Now our case manager is going to work alongside them, monitoring their progress this entire time they're in our IMC unit. So they do biweekly check-ins. They make sure that any homework they're given or any assignment they're given, that they get the help they need to finish it. Another great thing they do, the IMC deputies in our unit, is this last year with COVID, we had to get a little more creative with our programming because, like every other jail, we had to shut down most of our programming. Right. Thankfully, we were able to keep the IMC unit going because it's all in-house ran. But our IMC deputies, over the time of COVID, started creating their own classes. So I got to sit down with them, with Kelsey Demert, one of our outreach coordinator for the sheriff's office, and we worked with our deputies on individual classes they could teach to the IMC unit themselves. Like that just doesn't, I don't know where that happens anywhere else in the state, let alone the country, where you have correctional deputies teaching inmates. Right. And in that environment, usually there's a wall up. Right. I'm the correctional officer, you're the inmate. There is no boundary crossing, there is no love, we'll call it. There's that wall. And so it's been amazing over the last few years to see that wall come down a little bit, where we're trusting our staff to be able to project those classes out onto these guys and help them in that individual way. With that, so we're monitoring IMC inmates' progress through their time with us. And the unique thing about a jail is you might have an inmate that's there for a month. You might have an inmate that's there for a year. Right. It just depends on the crime, court, all that kind of stuff. So as long as whatever amount of time we have them for, we want to invest in them. We want them to return to those communities better than what they started. And so every inmate that I talk to, so the qualitative research, the personal stories, they usually have nothing bad to say about it. They say it helped. I loved that I had an IMC deputy that I could just ask questions. It didn't even have to be some great grand thing. It could have just been like, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. Can you listen to me for 5 minutes? Right. And we forget how important that connection is because we all get that on a normal day with our families, our friends, our loved ones, where these guys are isolated. They don't really get that interaction. And so when we provide that trust that can happen, where that growth then can happen also.
Well, and sometimes when they get that interaction, it's not the healthiest interaction.
Right.
Sometimes it's maybe the reason they're in it in the first place, where now they're being surrounded with positive influence.
Yes.
So when you guys do the selection and you surround it, is there parameters on, like, you can't be a maximum, you can't be a medium, that type of thing? You have to be in an environment and you have to be able to show. I imagine that interview process then kind of weeds that out, where you say, and the group says, and the fellow inmates say, correct?
Yes.
Yes, this person will fit in here.
Will fit in our community model that we're trying to create. Yep. And to hit on that, our max, when you come into jail, you get classified max, medium, or low risk. If you're classified as that max, you still can eventually make it there. It'll just take a little more time because, yes, we do still have to make sure that you can just be in a housing unit, a normal housing unit, and function well. Once you can do that, you can still apply, and then you can get a reclassification down to medium, and then we can get you into the IMC unit.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you said this program started in 2001. I can imagine it's probably changed over time. Can you tell us how the program has evolved since 2001?
Yeah. So when I became an IMC deputy in 2013, we were trying to figure it out. But what was nice is I was right on the, we'll call it the change moment. Prior to 2012, it was very much just a housing unit where we tried to do some good stuff. There was really no research behind it. There was really no, I don't want to say organization. There definitely was organization.
Maybe investment?
Investment,
and the outcome.
Yeah. So in 2012, 2013, that's when they said, all right, our IMC deputies are going to really start to take point on what being in the IMC unit is all about. And so that's where the IMC deputies started really learning what case management was. And so we were actually started to invest in our IMC deputies the same way community corrections would invest to their probation officers, because essentially that's what we wanted to happen. We wanted our IMC deputies to be doing the same thing almost that our POs are doing out on the street with these same people eventually, but while they're incarcerated and while we have them for 24/7 time period. Because what we know is that if you have a person that can't get away, usually you can invest in them a little more, because then you can get to them every single day, every hour of the day, every minute of the day. Whereas when they're out on the street, the PO kind of loses that connection and they may only check in once a month. So that's really the transition period that started to happen that I got to be part of as an IMC deputy, where we really started investing in our assessment tools for our clients, our inmates, and looking at those response needs and recidivism, because we knew that our inmates, there's always something wrong. There's a reason they're in jail, but to identify that with their risks, and then to identify what needs we can actually help while they're incarcerated. Once we figured that out in the 2013 time period, it just started snowballing and becoming better and better and better. And then we started including more cognitive-based therapy groups. So the other thing we've learned is that when we are targeting humans to change the way they think, we can't just say, hey, go, Paul, do this 21 times, and now you're going to be able to do it. We have to make you want. You got to decide that that's what you want to do. And so when you start thinking of the cognitive-based therapy of that approach and getting you to discover that this is the right thing for me, I shouldn't be drinking anymore. I shouldn't be using drugs anymore. I shouldn't be on the street hanging out with this group of people anymore. Once you can identify that through all this time that we invest in you in our unit, then we can start to move from that point and getting you ready to re-enter back into society. And then once you're ready, you say, I'm ready to change. And that's an actual thing in your mind. Then you just become a sponge. And then once you're a sponge, your case manager is going to keep feeding you. And you're going to do every program that we offer at the county. And my ultimate hope is that you return to the community better than what you came in, and you never come back. That's really the biggest goal.
That's the best sign of success is you don't have a return customer.
Yes.
It's the one time you don't want a return customer. You touched on something just a second ago, Sarge, or a little bit ago, when you talked about your staff and how the county has recognized that how critical this is and that it's so important that you invest more, that they make a little more money doing this. What kind of response have you seen from your staff and the impact on them? Why do they want to come into that unit? And so tell us, I know as a former sheriff that happy staff makes for a happy office, and that feeling of fulfillment. I used to always say, people say, why'd you love being a law enforcement officer? Because I made a difference every day. I knew the second I walked in the door, I didn't know what my day was going to be, but I knew I made a difference. Tell us about your staff and why they want to be part of this unit.
Yeah, so I have 8 IMC deputies that are, I technically lead, but they're still on shifts also. So they're on their normal shift that they operate, but then they're mainly working in the IMC unit. Yeah. So if you asked any one of them why they want to be an IMC deputy, I think it would be very similar to what I say, is that you want to make sure your time in the jail is not wasted. Because as we all know, you can come work, do your job for 12 hours and go home, and then that's it, and be done. But I think all of my IMC deputies want more than that. They want to know that they made a difference. They want to know when they go home at the end of the night, man, I'm really exhausted. But you know what? I just invested into 3 guys the entire day and talking about how when they get out of this place and back into the community, they don't have to come back by, finding that job, walking through those steps with them. And I think what motivates them is that knowing, like we just said, Paul, that they never come back. Yeah. When we never see them again, that's just an amazing feeling. When I have that story of Pete that you see in the community,
that had to feel good.
Yeah, when you have a story like that you can share with them, they're just exasperated with joy, because then they know what they're doing actually means something. And I think as an employee, that's really all you want. You want that feeling of satisfaction that what we're doing actually means something. And yes, the money helps. They get paid. It helps.
And I think money is always nice, but we wouldn't have got into law enforcement
right.
if we were looking at making a ton of money. Is that the money's nice, and it's certainly, I think, a good incentive to help, and shows the value that, like say, the sheriff's office puts on the fact that you're wanting to do this. I think that's all important, but we all know it's the fulfillment.
Yes.
It's that making a difference that really matters, and you guys have captured that. So that's well, thanks for sharing that. I wondered how the staff were doing, because it's so critical. The staff has to invest.
Yeah.
And if you got that staff investment, that inmate investment, you got something that's going to work.
Absolutely.
And it's working.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we are coming to the end of part 1, but we will be back for part 2. So maybe you can just share any final thoughts that you have.
Yeah. Just for all the viewers that are out there listening, I know one of the big things that with your own departments and with your own staffing, I know the world of corrections right now is hard. I know everyone is trying to hire people, and I know our market for getting people is very low right now. But one of the things that I like to refocus my staff on is that there is a reason we're doing this. There is a reason we work in corrections. And like that story I shared about Pete, there are hundreds of those stories out there across the country. It's just trying to identify them so you can share them with your staff. It goes really far with me and my staff once you can find those stories and share them. So do that with your staff. And also just want to make it available. I'm always available for tours at our facility to look at the IMC unit and talk about the IMC unit. But I think we're going to do that in episode 2. We're going to talk a little bit about it more. So we'll talk more then.
All right. Well, as the good Sarge said, we will come back in part 2 and kind of just recapture everything we talked about here real quick. But the most important part of part 2 is he's going to give his advice on how you can implement this into your organization and into your jail at whatever level you feel you want to do it. As I said, when you already have a model out there, what better to do than to best practice it and implement it into your environment? So we will see you all in part 2 of Inmates Motivated to Change with good Sergeant Jacob Schak here. And with that, I'm Paul Laney.
And I'm Lauren Matthews.
And you've been listening to Jail Talk. And if you like what you've been hearing, give us a like and subscribe, and we're going to keep getting it done for you. We'll see you next time.